All right, so I'm gonna try a little improvisation on each one of these guitars using harmonics. The first thing that I noticed about these guitars when Eric brought them to LA was this amazing liveliness of harmonics on these guitars, and I think I'll be really hard pressed to tell you the difference between the three guitars, because I remember them all sounding really wonderful up there. But maybe today I'm going to hear something that's specific, but also it's for you to listen to and to judge for yourselves. So it's going to be an improvisation. It's not going to be the same on each guitar, but I'm going to try to make it as similar as possible so we can do the comparison. No, that's really beautiful experience, to be sitting here. I hope it's also transmitting to the listener at a distance, which I believe it does. But just the way that you can hear the interaction of these harmonics, and they're ringing together, and so the relationship keeps changing. But the guitar really gives a lot. And gives a lot of sustain, and they're really very, very nicely balanced. And you notice that I'm doing this sort of a funny thing when I hit them sometimes, this, which is pressing on the soundboard here, which modifies the sound. So my shirt is banging on there a little bit, but you can hear how sensitive the guitar is, because just by touching it very lightly, it sounds like an electronic effect, when you plug it like an electric guitar into a pedal. Okay, so now I'm going to move from, this was guitar B, and now I'm going to move to the guitar R, do a similar improvisation on the guitar R, and I'm just going to start it right away, see if we can get a nice comparison. Well, it's really, really nice. It seems to me like this guitar is a little more open, has a little more openness to it. Like when I hit the bass harmonic, I can hear more of the body of the sound than on the previous one. It's nice on the previous one, but here there's a certain quality that's difficult to describe verbally, but it feels like the sound is here, and then there's space or air around it. And this is the kind of quality that I really like about the sound. It doesn't feel like it's in any way kind of restrained. So I feel that on this guitar, the low harmonics, the high harmonics are great on both of them. I just think that this one just has a little bit of an edge on the low harmonics, where I hear a little more of the body of the lower part of the harmonic, as well as the higher part. Okay, so now I will move on to guitar Y, and we're going to put it through the same kind of thing. Let's see what we got here. It's so interesting. Yeah, this one has the same thing with the bass. It's not as open as the previous one, the bass harmonics, but the high harmonics are even livelier than the low one. So when I hit these up here, this interaction, it's very live. It's very exciting for me as a player. If I hit a harmonic or two like this, after I hit it, to hear it actually start to open up and to get louder. Because on guitar, the frustration is always the fact, like, once you hit the string, it starts dying immediately, right? As opposed to, let's say, violin or a wind instrument, where once you hit it, it's only the beginning of the story, right? But on these guitars and on great guitars, they have this quality where after you hit a note, it sounds like it actually opens up after you've actually hit it. And this guitar, it seems to me, has the most pronounced, that quality most pronounced in the high harmonics of the three of them. Although, as I said before, they're all really wonderful in harmonics. Okay, so now I'd like to play a little bit of a chordal kind of improvisation in arpeggiated chords that shows me a sort of a balance between the bottom and top, and how friendly is the guitar in terms of how much do I need to adjust the balance, let's say, between the thumb, which is playing the bass strings, and the other fingers that are playing the upper strings. So I'm just going to take a sequence of chords that includes more or less most of the range of the guitar, and just see how they're balanced. Yeah, generally it's really nice. When I'm playing with the open low E string, like this sort of thing, or if I play a higher chord on the top, it's really nicely balanced. The low string has clear definition, and it also has enough of the low part of the spectrum that it really fills out the frequencies from bottom to top. The problems happen when I start fretting the bass string. Let's say here, this is nice. The G sharp is still pretty good. See, here it starts to kind of die. See, this G is really kind of flat, two-dimensional compared to the other notes. Same thing with the F sharp. I have to really hit it if I, because I want to get the sound out of it. But so if I hit it too hard, then I start getting the buzz, which is not what I want. Same thing with the F natural. And now listen, when I go to E, all of a sudden it opens up. But you just play a harmonic and then everything's cool. But yeah, those were I do understand that this has to do with the specific construction of the guitar, and it's this really fine balance about having to lose a little bit of something in order to gain something else. So this area here between G sharp and F on the bass is a little bit pale compared to the rest, and I'm wondering if any of the three guitars has a little bit better situation there, because it's a little bit sort of built into the design. So now we're gonna do the same thing with R. I'd say that's quite similar. You know, this guitar has pretty much the same weaknesses, but overall it seems more open to me. This guitar seems, when I play the rest of it, it's a very small, subtle difference, but it sounds more open, like it has more of that air around it. If that translates, it's the best that I can say in words. In terms, you know, it just feels. What I mean that it has air around it, it feels that I can expand things in different directions, you know, meaning there's space around the notes, both in terms of volume. That means, you know, I feel like I got a potential in volume, I got potential in color, right? Bright, dark, and so on. So, and you know, and you know, in color, in frequency, in articulation, you know, just this guitar just seems more open, more like ready to give a little more, you know, or ready to be pushed a little more before sound starts actually working against itself. Okay, now let's go to Y and see how this one's gonna do. Here we go. Yeah, quite similar. I can't say that I can really detect much difference. The only difference that I detect in the bass is for example, this one. Well, I was just gonna say it's harder to force it into a buzz, but now I've just I just contradicted myself. You know, it seemed like this one was holding up a little bit better. At least the sound is still too foggy on those several bass notes. But I can push them a little more, I thought. So this guitar, it seems to me less exciting, but more even in a way. It's kind of more predictable. You know, both of the other ones have certain things about them that kind of stand out, and that, you know, if I'm improvising, you know, that I want to grab that, you know, I want to go, oh, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go like into the harmonics, or I'm going to go into this particular range. You know, this guitar doesn't quite have that spark, but the advantage that I hear in it is that it's kind of more like a neutral ground where you can, you know, you can do different things. You know, maybe you can't quite push it as much, but it's an interesting observation that now that I've played these guitars a little more, I'm starting kind of to get some kind of a sense of each one of them as actually being slightly different and having a slightly different personality. Okay, I'm gonna do a little strumming now, but you know, as I'm not a bluegrass or R&B kind of strummer, I come more out of the classical thing. I'm going to use some of the flamenco techniques, you know, which I found actually sound quite interesting on these guitars. So I'm just going to push them a little bit and see. I actually haven't yet made a comparison for myself in this way. So I'm just going to play like a sequence of chords and play them strumming and pushing it, and just see what the comparison might be. Here we go. All I can say is that's a lot of fun. It's just really, the guitar is very solid. You know, it's like when you hear it, you know, it's not choking or anything, and they've got the jangly harmonics and everything, and it's great. It's great. That was B. Now let's go to R. Put it through the same kind of paces. Wow. See, this one's more open. It's got more, you know, I hear it's kind of like looking at a landscape that's very wide. Yeah, and I after I played the first one, I thought this is about, you can't go further than that. But this one is even more. There's more. I feel has a bigger range. You know, I hear a little more bottom, a little more top, and it's very interactive. You know, it's like, you know, I just feel it's almost kind of like boxing with somebody. You know, with a good partner. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's see what I does on this. Nice, those high harmonics that I heard before, I can hear them really interacting up there. Yeah, pretty cool. You know, I said this guitar seemed kind of a little more controlled and more balanced. Just got wild there for a minute. So I don't know if you know, it's hard to tell if it's, you know, because I'm kind of warming up to it, and then by the time I get to the third guitar, I really sort of figure out the interaction. So I feel it's maybe a little bit unfair to say, oh, this one, like for me, they kind of, you know, the first one that initially seemed great, still great, but then the middle one was even better, you know, and then this last one seemed wilder even, you know, in other words, having certain things pop out, you know, certain ranges and harmonics crossing and stuff like that, whereas in the previous test with the chords, you know, it seemed to me much more kind of like reserved and more balanced. So now I'd like to play a short piece on each one of the guitars and see. Again, it's not fixed, so I will not play it exactly, but I will try to play it in a similar way as possible, and then maybe if one of the guitars sways me in a particular way, I might kind of go that way and do it slightly differently. I'm going to play a song that's a traditional folk song from Macedonia, which is called Kalesh Bre Anjo. It's a beautiful, simple song that most people over there know, and I think it can show a lot about the guitar. It's very melodic and very resonant. So I've switched the order of guitar, so I'm going to start now on guitar R. Right, no complaints there. So, switching to Y. Yeah. And same thing on B. Here is Calles Preanjo, now on guitar R. Here we go. Y. Okay, enough of that one. Yeah, if you want my reactions now, this is the hardest, you know, because I'm just making music, you know, so I'm not trying to be analytical about it, and because these guitars are so good, each one of them is so good, you know, they're giving me what I'm putting in, or like if I hear a certain kind of thing that I like about it, you know, I might sort of exploit that, but there's nothing specifically that I could say, oh yeah, you know, this one gave me more of this or gave me more of that, because there was plenty of what I was looking for. I would say the only really, the only thing that I wish was different is a little bit of that, you know, the bass movement. It gets foggy. Open strings are better, you know, because they're vibrating in their full length, and so they have the kind of depth. But if I press the string, for example, if I play an A string, open, has a really nice ring, has, you know, feels very free, and then if I play it on the 6th string, it's not bad, you know, but it's more, kind of has a slightly more pale and two-dimensional sound, and of course it doesn't quite sustain as long because the you know, the string length is now shorter. And then as we go into these notes, I mean, they sound pretty decent when I hit them alone, these problematic, the F sharp and so on, but I think when I play them in context, you hear how they don't quite hold their own against the higher notes. See, to do it, you know, I'm pushing it to an area where then the sound gets disfigured in another way. So that's the only aspect of these instruments that I heard also now when I was doing comparison between these three actual pieces. But since I know the instruments a little bit better, you know, I just kind of accepted it, and I kind of take that into calculation when I'm playing, and I know, okay, you know, these are not certain things to emphasize or to try to get if they're not there, you know. You know, there are other ways of maybe improving that. You know, one thing I think that's really important is the matching of strings to a guitar. You know, I believe that every guitar has strings that suited the best. I mean, there's the guitar strings that suit the guitar, and then that also suit the player and the guitar. But I think that strings are one of the important factors once a really great instrument is made like this one. You know, for that little extra, if something is missing in there, you know, both in terms of the physical interaction with the instrument and the acoustic properties of it. You know, there are certain strings that I'm totally sure that there are strings that would really help with this F sharp, F, G area down there. But you know, it's like everything else. You know, we might lose something else elsewhere. That's why I don't think that this is quite the case in steel string guitar world, but in nylon string is that actually players will combine strings. For example, Paco de Lucia was known as having each string from a different manufacturer. So it was like, okay, I got a set of Dadarios, I got a set of Augustines or something like that. It's like, you know, how my top string is like Luthier, you know, my second string is Hannebach, my third string is Daddario, my fourth string is, you know, whatever. So, you know, I think that's an interesting subject. Maybe not really specifically what we're talking about here, but I thought it's an interesting observation that a lot of players don't really think about so much. You know, they think these are my favorite strings, but maybe if they have 2 or 3 different guitars, those same strings may be only optimal on one of those guitars. You know, besides playing guitar, which is what my profession and what my life has been in the last 20 years or so, I've been also really interested in Luthiery. It has been an incredibly rewarding sort of a side thing that I do that gives me a lot of great pleasure, just working with wood, making instruments, being away from computers, somehow plugging into this tradition of craftsmanship and instrument making that is hundreds and maybe thousands of years old. And an interesting thing for me, and I've been member of the guild and reading a lot of literature about it, but I've never been really that interested in the scientific aspect of it. Whenever I'd get like my Luthiery journal, and there's an article about a luthier and their methods or their life story or whatever, I'm always super interested in. But then when you get into one of those things of like somebody like testing the the properties of the box and how the sound moves around, I've never had really much interest in that. I was also really bad at mathematics when I was a kid, so maybe that just kind of worked with that. And that was until very recently, until I was invited to test these guitars for you guys, and that's when I really started appreciating the scientific aspect of it, because I can finally connect it to the whole intuitive and musical aspect of the instrument, so I'm very thankful that you've introduced me to what you're doing, and I think that your mission is super important from many different aspects, from many different angles. I think it's important for players because I think the ultimate goal of being able to provide the best material for the instruments of different grades, that means not only the best material for the best possible guitars, but also the best material for guitars that need to be kept lower in cost so that they're available to people who might not be able to afford a higher level instrument, that those instruments are also optimized to be the best possible within their price range. So I think making the instrument that is so popular and that has been so therapeutic for a lot of people, playing guitar is a really important part of many people's lives who don't do it professionally at all, but it provides a rest from maybe a difficult rest of the day. It provides a space with oneself that is not with the phone or in front of a computer. That's like holding something that comes from natural materials. And being able to provide instruments for people of different means that are still good quality instruments, I think is extremely important. And then for instrument makers, whether they're large factories or whether they're individual craftspeople, to be able to start from something that has certain known quantities, rather than spending, I've been able, since I've been making guitars, because really it's something on the side for me, I'm really close to my 50th instrument, which is really a lot for somebody who's really sort of like a hobbyist. But for a real luthier, they say it takes 100 guitars to even start figuring out what's going on. Well, a part of that is, trying to figure things out about the material, and particularly about the soundboard, which is the heart of the instrument. And what you're doing is you're working on doing that part of the job, because you really know so much about wood, not only as people who are familiar with the way that it grows and the way that it's cut and the way that it's processed specifically for musical instruments, but also because you're musicians, you're thinking about it in a musical way, and then being able to provide this essential material, the most essential part of the guitar, that is measured in a particular way that guarantees certain qualities to a luthier. It saves them a lot of time and a lot of guessing, you know, a lot of trial and error, and puts them in a place to develop their instruments in a way that is just simpler to kind of see the progression and to understand if you have come up with an instrument that is exceptional, or you have come up like with a dud, you know, to understand that, okay, if you know that the soundboard is of a particular quality, then you know that whatever made it either special or not so good is something else, you know, that you can then deal with, whether it's going to be bracing, whether it's going to be the design of the instrument, or whether it's going to be other woods that are involved, and so on and so forth. So I think that just makes for a better chance that every single instrument is great, you know, is as great as any luthier can make it. You know, and it's also very environment conscious, you know, because then you don't have a lot of scraps, you know, to throw into the fire, because you know, that you know, you don't have to be like halfway through making a guitar to realize that, well, you know, this soundboard really is not what I wanted. So I think that it's a tremendous service to the world, you know, in very many aspects. It's not just for the guitarist, or just for the guitar builder, or even just for the environment. It's for all of those at the same time. I've really been a very happy person since I've discovered Luthiery myself as sort of something that I do on the side. And I've got really obsessed with it to a point where at certain points in my life I considered maybe trying to get into it more seriously on a professional level, but I know it's very it's a very difficult life, and I've already sort of carved out my place as a performer, and so I'm trying to keep it balanced. But I've learned a lot about Luthiery and about building instruments since I started doing it myself about 20 years ago. And I can say that I was skeptical about the scientific approach of people, but that was never something that really interested me. You know, I was really interested in sort of the intuition, you know, working with wood and you know, maybe a little more sort of these kind of mysterious or mystical aspects of instruments. And it's only very recently, since I was invited by the people from Pacific Rim Tonewoods to compare some guitars that were built on some very solid scientific principles, that I've actually gotten interested in it in a way that's not only intellectual, you know, but it's like really something that I find is a really interesting aspect of Luthiery, beside those sort of traditional things of traditional tools, working with wood, using your intuition, using your experience. And I found that actually the scientific approach, especially to testing soundboards and to sort of classifying them in very specific ways, can be really very helpful to the luthier. And the thing about it is that it saves time, but it also saves a lot of trees. You know, it saves a lot of trial and error, a lot of you know, a lot of soundboards ending up in the fireplace and so on. You know, I think that what they're doing is very important, you know, from many aspects. You know, it means that guitarists are going to be able to buy the best possible instrument within their price range. You know, whether it's sort of like the economy, the very first instrument. If the soundboard for that instrument is optimized for that price range, that means that theoretically all of the instruments in that price range are going to be as good as they can possibly be. You know, and I think that this is very important, that let's say a young student, or you know, just somebody who is interested in playing, starts out with an instrument that already has a certain sort of magic about it, and then, you know, all the way up to the you know, to the professional players, where the instruments are also going to be a little more, the instruments of really high quality are going to be a little more accessible, because luthiers are not going necessarily to have like every 2 or 3 of the guitars that they make that's going to have the special magic, but they're going to be able to control it better, because what you guys are doing is doing a part of that work, which was usually gained strictly by experience, and by years and years of going through soundboards, making guitars, making conclusions, taking notes, you're taking part of that of that task, and saving time, and also making a higher quality instrument something that's not a hit and miss, but something that can be predicted. And then also you're opening up doors for experimentation with other aspects of guitar building, with bracing, with different woods, especially now that we're looking at shortage of certain woods that are traditional, where we can bring other types of woods into constructing the whether it's the soundboards or certainly the rest of the guitar. And in the end, it also, I think, helps with the responsible use of resources, because they can be used in a way that is more specific and that is more efficient, so that we actually lose less trees to this kind of trial and error. Here we go.
I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world of woe. But there's no sickness told nor danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I know dark clouds may travel before me. I know my way is rough and steep, but beauteous fields may rise before me, where God redeems their vigils keep. I'm going there to see my mother. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger, traveling through